We continue now at the top of Daf Samichamid Beis in Meseches Kiddushin. This is Kiddushin Daf 60b. This daf is sponsored by Sean Kashani. Thank you for your sponsorship. If you would like to sponsor an Amud or a daf, please see the description box below and see the description box below to see how you can support this channel. On the previous Amud, we had a machlokus between Rav Huna and Rav Yehuda by both Kiddushin and Gittin in the following case. Let's say a person says, for example, by Gittin, he says, this is your get. On the condition, he says to the woman that you give me 200 zuz. So the machlokus between Rav Huna and Rav Yehuda was, according to Rav Huna, when she gives the money, so retroactively, it's going to be a divorce. And according to Rav Yehuda, it's only going to be a divorce at the point in time when she gives the money. There's a similar machlokus when it comes to Kiddushin as well. The Gemara now continues in terms of discussing the machlokus by Geirish and my Beinayu. What's the difference between them? What's the difference if it's retroactive or if it's not retroactive? And the Gemara says, Iko Beinayu sheniskara haget. The difference is, let's say, for example, the get gets torn, the get is destroyed in the interim, so if it's retroactive, it will still be a good get, but if the get has to be chal later, it will not. O shavar, or let's say it's lost, the same nafkamina. L'Rav Huna have a get, L'Rav Yehuda lo have a get. According to Rav Huna, would be a good get, and according to Rav Yehuda would not be a good get. A similar machlokus by Gittin as we find by Kiddushin. And so the Gemara says utzricha. Now the Gemara says it's necessary to have the machlokus by both Kiddushin and by Geirushin. Why? The iyashminan gabe Kiddushin, because if we only had this machlokus by Kiddushin, bahakama Rav Huna, so over there Rav Huna would say that it's retroactive, mishum de lekrova kasi, because he's having her come close to him. It's Kiddushin, it's marriage. It makes sense it would work retroactively. Aval Geirushin de lerechoka kasi, but by Geirushin where he's distancing her from him, so Ema Modi Leila Rav Yehuda, I might say that Rav Huna admits to Rav Yehuda that it's only Chal later on, and so therefore that's why Rav Huna has to say it by Geirushin as well. V'itmar Bahach, and let's say we only had the machlokus by Geirushin, so then I would say Bahach Ka'amar Rav Huna, I would say that only by Geirushin does Rav Huna say that it's retroactive, Mishum Di'iu Lo Kasif Leila Mitzvah, because in the case of Geirushin, he's asking her for money. The condition is that she has to give him the money, and then it's a good divorce. So in that situation, he's not embarrassed to ask the money from her, and that's why Rav Huna says that it's going to be a gerushin retroactively in that case. Aval hacha, but over here, di'i ksifa lo mitzvah. In the case of Kiddushin, the condition was in the other direction. The condition was hareya mekudeshes li. I'm going to give you this pruta, and you're mekudeshes to me on the condition that I give you the money. Now she might be ashamed to ask from him to get the money. So since she's ashamed to do that, so in that situation, ema modi leila Rav Yehuda. So I might say that Rav Huna would admit to Rav Yehuda that it's not going to be chal retroactively. In that particular case, it's not chal at all until she actually asks for the money, and therefore it's tzricha. That's why it's necessary to have the machlokus, Rav Huna and Rav Yehuda, in both cases. And Rashi explains, my beinayu, again the Gemara asks, what's the difference between the position of Rav Huna and the position of Rav Yehuda? Al karchach le Rav Huna nami asur li nase at shetitein, shema lo yeskayim hatanai. Now Rashi points out, of course, according to Rav Huna, even though the divorce is retroactive, she's not going to be allowed to marry right away, because she can't get married until the condition is actually fulfilled, until she gives the money, because again, shema lo yeskayim hatanai. Maybe the condition won't be fulfilled. If the get batel, then it will turn out that the get was nullified, uvanem mamzerim, her children are mamzerim. That's why the Gemara is asking what's the difference between them. She has to wait either way, and that's why the Gemara said the nafkamina is, let's say the get is torn or destroyed, and the Gemara then said the lekrova asi, when it comes to Kiddushin, he's bringing her close to him, umir lekarva elav, he wants to do that quickly, it's retroactive. The Gomer Kiddushin bepruta shenasanla, the Kiddushin is concluded with just the pruta, and later when the money is given, that's just a fulfillment of the condition, but it happens retroactively. Ema modele Rav Yehuda, but I might say that by get, he admits, Rav Huna admits to Rav Yehuda that it would not be retroactive, the lo gomer lemhavegita, because there, it's not going to be an effective get, ad shatitan, until she actually gives the money. There, it's not going to be retroactive because he's actually saying, I don't want this get to be concluded until that money is given. Ulai yispaisu beintayim, and maybe in the meantime they'll make up with one another. Shein adam memaher lerachik es ishto. A person is not so quick to distance himself from his wife. And then the Gemara said that it could be the other direction. It could be bahach kamar Rav Huna. It could be by Geirish, and there Rav Huna says that it happens retroactively from the moment the get is given. The megureshes miyad, she's divorced right away. Lo chashash habal la'akev gerushachi yakabel hamos. The husband is not thinking that I'm going to hold back the divorce until I get the money. Mishum de lo kasif lemitvela, because he's not embarrassed to ask her for the money, and so therefore maybe by gerushin it happens right away, but maybe by kiddushin ema modele Rav Yehuda, maybe Rav Huna would admit to Rav Yehuda that it doesn't happen until he actually gives the money. Sharei lo nisratzis b'kiddushat she'itin, because she doesn't want to have the kiddushin until he actually gives the money, and so again that's why we have to have the machlokus between Rav Huna and Rav Yehuda by both kiddushin and gerushin. And the Gemara continues, Meisve, we have a question. This is from a Tosefton Gittin. Hareza gitach al menashe titni li masayim zuz. If a man says to a woman, husband says to a wife, this is your get on the condition that you give me 200 zuz. Afal pishin isgara haget o sha'avid, even though the get is torn or lost, harezu megureshes, she is divorced, but la'acher lo tinasei at shetitin, but she shouldn't marry someone else until she actually gives the money, until she fulfills the condition. V'yo Tanya, and further we learned in a brayso, Amar la hareza gitach al menashe titni li masayim zuz. If he says to her, this is your get on the condition you give me 200 zuz, v'meis, and he dies, nosna in l'zukuka liyavam. So if she gives the money, if she gave the money, so then she's fulfilled the condition, it's a divorce, and she's not bound to the yavam, to the brother-in-law, there's no yibam. But lo nosna, but if she didn't give the money, zukuka liyavam, so then she's bound to the yavam, she didn't fulfill the condition, and now already he died, so it's too late, she can't fulfill the condition, therefore she's considered a widow, she's not considered a divorcee, and she does have to take care of the obligation of yibam, again, either through yibam or through chalitza. Rav Shimon ben Gamliel says, no senes la'achiv o la'aviv o la'echon min akrovim. It's not true. Even when he already died, she can still fulfill the condition. She can give the money to his brother, she can give it to his father, or she can give it to one of the other relatives. And so the Gemara now asks, Adkan lo pligi. The entire machlokus over here in this brayso between the Tanakam and Rav Shimon ben Gamliel is only ela demar savar livelo liyorshai umar savar afilo yarshai. That one Tana holds you have to give the money to me. It's not a fulfillment of the condition to give it to my inheritors, to give it to my Yarshim. And the other one says, no, even if you give it to the Yarshim, that's also, if she gives it to the Yarshim, that's a fulfillment of the condition. So that's just a technical machlokus in terms of how she fulfills the condition. But to Kuli Alma Mia, to not have it, but it seems like everybody agrees that it's considered a condition and it works retroactively. That's why it's still effective if the get is torn or lost, or it could still be effective if she fulfills the condition after his death. And so the Gemara says to you, if the Rav Yehuda, so should we say that that's a refutation of Rav Yehuda? Rav Yehuda said that it's not retroactive, and here this seems to go against the position of Rav Yehuda. And the Gemara says, Amar lach Rav Yehuda will say to you, Ha mani Rebbe, that who's the author of this brayso? The author of this brayso is actually Rebbe. To Yamar Rav Huna Amar Rebbe, because Rav Huna said that Rebbe said, Kol ha'omer al menas. Anytime the person says the words al menas, over here, the condition was specifically formulated with the words al menas, on condition, ka'omer me'achshav dami. So the words al menas are the same as saying me'achshav. It's as if the person explicitly said from now, he explicitly said it's retroactive, and so there, of course, it's going to be retroactive. That's the opinion of Rebbe. That's who that Bryce is following. Upligi Rabbanan ale, but the Rabbanan disagree. They argue on that. They say it's not considered like me'achshav. V'yanod da'amri k'Rabbanan, and I follow the opinion of the Rabbanan. And the Gemara continues, Gufa, returning to what we said above, Amar Rav Huna Amar Rebbe, Rav Huna says, the Rebbe says, Kala Omer al Manas, Ka Omer Me'achshav Dami. Anybody who says al Manas, it's as if they said Me'achshav, and it works retroactively, it works from now. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rabbi Zeira says, Ki havinon beBavel, when I was in Bavel, have amrinon, so we said in Bavel, Had Amar Rav Huna Amar Rebbe, that which Rav Huna said, the Rebbe said, Kala Omer al Manas, Ka Omer Me'achshav Dami, that anybody who says al Manas, it's like saying Me'achshav, it works from now, it works retroactively. Pligi Rabbanan aleh. The Rabbanan argue with Rebbe. In other words, in Bavel we said that this was just the opinion of Rebbe, and the Rabbanan disagree. But Kisalki lahasam. But when I went up to Eretz Yisrael, Ashkechei Rabbi Yasi Diyosiv, I found Rabbi Yasi that he was sitting. The Ka'amar lo mishmeid Rabbi Yochanan. He said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Hakol modim, that everybody actually admits, everybody agrees. But Omer al Manas, Ka'omer me'achshav dami, that if he says al Manas, it's considered me'achshav, it's retroactive. Lo nechliku ela mehayom ulachar misa. The only machlokus between Rebbe and other Tanoim is if the way he formulates it is if he says mehayom ulachar misa. V'atanya, and we learned in a brayso, we have a brayso that supports this, mehayom ulachar misa, if he says from today and after death, so there's a machlokus Tanoim. Get ve'eno get divrei chachamim, according to the chachamim it's a get, but it's also not a get, it's a suffix. We don't know if he meant mehayom from today, in which case it would be a good get and it would work retroactively, or did he mean that it should be a get lachar misa, it should be a get after he dies, which of course is not a good get, and it would not be a good get. That's according to the Chachamim. And Rebbe Omer kazeh get, but Rebbe says this is considered to be a good get, even by a case of mehayom ulachar misa. Rebbe is saying that would work retroactively. And the Gemara says, now Rebbe Yehuda, now according to the opinion of Rebbe Yehuda, we just said above, Diyomer bal manas nami pligi, because he says that the machlokus Rebbe and the Chachamim is also by al manas, that Rebbe says it's retroactive and the Chachamim say it's not retroactive. So ademifligi b'mehayom ulachar misa, so instead of arguing arguing? Why are the Chacham and Rebbe arguing in a case of Mehayom Ulachar Misa? Niflgi b'Almanas. They should instead argue by Almanas, Lohdi, and so therefore that would be a bigger Chiddush. They should argue by Almanas, and we'll say that even by Almanas, the Chachamim argue with Rebbe. And the Gemara answers, no, the reason why they argue by Mehayom Ulachar Misa is Lohdiyacha Koach to Rebbe. It's to show the strength of Rebbe, that Rebbe even says Mehayom Ulachar Misa is a good get. To Mehayom Ulachar Misa, Nami Hareza get. That by Mehayom Ulachar Misa is also a good get. The Gemara says, V'niflagi b'Almanas Lohdiyacha Koach to Rabbanan, but why not argue by Almanas to show the strength of the Rabbanan, that they say it's even not going to be effective, or meaning to say they say even by a case of Almanas, it is not going to be retroactive. Why not say that? And to that the Gemara says, Koach to Hetera Adif. The Gemara says, the Koach of Heter, the strength of the person who's lenient, meaning Rebbe goes so far as to say that it's even a retroactive get by Mehayom Ulachar Misa, it's stronger to give the Chiddush in that case, to say that even over there, Rebbe says it's going to be a good get. And Rashi explains, Salki l'hasam k'sha'alisi l'Eretz Yisrael, again, when I went up to Eretz Yisrael, so then I found out, lo nechleku, that the only machlokas, everybody really agrees by Almanas, that it's me'achshav, and the only machlokas, kolomar, lo mesafkelu l'Rabbanan, the Rabbanan have no doubt, itanoi chazara, whether it's a condition or a retraction, ela b'mehayom ulachar misa, their only doubt is by mehayom ulachar misa, but when it comes to Almanas, again, everybody agrees. That's what Rabbi Zera says when I went up to Eretz Yisrael. So I found that everybody agrees when it comes to Almanas, it is certainly going to be a condition. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, Almanas she'etein loch mikan v'chulu. Let's say the man says to the woman that Harayat mekudeshes li or mekudeshes to me on the condition that I give you within 30 days a certain amount of money. And so then the Mishnah said he has to give the money within that time frame. The Gemara says, Pshit, isn't that obvious? That was the condition. Of course he has to give it within that time frame. Ma'u detema, the Gemara says, what might you have said? Lav tanohu, it's really not part of the condition. Maybe he doesn't have to give it within the 30 days. V'lizruze ka'amar, he was just saying it in order to motivate himself to say that he's going to do it quickly, but really he doesn't have to do it within that time frame. Kamash malon, and so therefore the Mishnah is teaching that he does have to do it within that time frame. That is part of the condition. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, Al manas sheyesh li masayim zuz v'chulu, says on the condition that I have 200 zuz. So if he shows that he has 200 zuz, it's a good kiddushin. And the Gemara says, V'neichosh shema yeshlo, but even if he doesn't show he has it, shouldn't we be concerned that maybe he does have 200 zuz? It should at least be a suffix kiddushin. V'yod, and further, Tanya, we learned in a brayso, chayshinan shema yeshlo, that indeed we are concerned that maybe he does have the money. So there should at least be a suffix kiddushin over here. And the Gemara says, Lo kash, it's not difficult. Havik kiddushay vadai. The Mishnah is talking about the fact that it's not a certain kiddushin if he doesn't show that he has the money, but habik kiddushay suffix. But the brayso, when it says that it's a kiddushin, it just means it's a suffix kiddushin, and the Mishnah would agree with that as well. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, Al menas she'erech masayim zuz v'chulu, says that on the condition that I show you 200 zuz, he has to show him 200 zuz of his own money. He can't just show, let's say, money from someone else on the table. And the Gemara says, Tana was taught, alone iskavna el aliros mishalo. The intention is that he has to show from his own money. Again, it said in the Mishnah, V'imhera lo ala shulchan eina mekudeshes. If he shows it to her on the table, it's not a good kiddushin. So pshit isn't that obvious. Of course, it has to be his own money. The Gemara says, lo no tzrich, it's necessary. The avagav the nokatz may be iska. Even though he has this money, let's say there's a joint venture. This money is not his, but there's a joint venture between him and another business partner. So he has some association with this money. That is not good enough. He has to actually show that the money is his. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Al manas sheyesh li base kor offer. Let's say a man says to a woman, Harayat mekudeshes li, or mekudeshes to me on the condition that I have a base core of offer of dirt, meaning he owns a certain amount of land. Harezu mekudeshes, that is a good kiddushin v'yeshlo, if he in fact does own that amount of property. Al manas sheyesh li b'makom ploni. Let's say he says it's on the condition that I have it in a certain location. Im yeshlo ba'oso makom mekudeshes, if he has the land in that particular location, it's a good kiddushin. V'im la ve'ena mekudeshes. If not, it's not a good kiddushin. Al manas she'erech beis korafar, on the condition that I show you this amount of land, harezu mekudeshes v'yiren, it's a good kiddushin if he shows that he has that land. V'imhera bebika, now if he shows the land in a valley, meaning to say if he shows land that's not actually his, so eina mekudeshes, so that's not a good kiddushin. And the Gemara says, V'neicho shema yeshlo, we should be concerned, maybe he does have it, meaning to say, even if he doesn't demonstrate that he actually has the land, but maybe we should be concerned that he might have the land. It should be a kiddushin from Suffolk. V'yotan, and further we learn in a brayso, chashinan shema yeshlo, that we do have such a concern that maybe he has the land. And the Gemara answers as it answered earlier, Lokash, it's not difficult. difficult. Habe Kiddushay Vadai, Habe Kiddushay Safek. In one case, we're talking about in terms of it being a certain Kiddushin, meaning if he doesn't demonstrate that he has the land, it's not going to be a certain Kiddushin, but it still will be a Kiddushay Safek. It still will be a Kiddushin out of doubt. And the Gemara now says, Lamali lemisna gabe arav, lamali lemisna gabe zuze. Why do we have to teach the same thing by land and the same thing by money? We just said that when it comes to money, if he shows that he has the money, it's certainly a Kiddushin. If he doesn't show it, so then it's a Safek, it might be Kiddushin. And the same thing is true by land. Why do we have to teach it twice? And the Gemara says, Tzrich, it's necessary, diyash minam gabe zuze, because if I only taught it by money, mishum davidi inchi demitzni, because that's something people hide their money. So therefore there's a genuine Safek over here. Even if he doesn't show that he has the money, he might have the money. Avalara, but when it comes to land, if he doesn't show that he has the land, ema ida islayara kala islay. We should say, I might say that if he had land, there would certainly be rumors about it. Everybody would know that he had the land, and the fact that it's not publicly known shows that he does not have land. Maybe it should not even be a Safek. And the Gemara therefore says kamash malon. Therefore, the Mishnah is teaching us when it comes to land, it's exactly the same as money. If he shows he has it, it's a Kiddushin. If he doesn't show he has it, so then it's a Safek Kiddushin. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, Al manas sheyeshli b'makam ploniim yeshlo v'chul. If he says on condition that I have the land in a certain location, so he has to have the land in that location. And the Gemara says, Pshita, isn't that obvious? That was part of the condition. The Gemara says, no, Ma'u Detema, what might you have said? Omar lo my nafkalach mina. He can say to her, what difference does it make to you? I'll bring the produce from wherever the land is. It shouldn't really make a difference where the location is. Kamash malon. So that's what the Mishnah teaches us, that it does make a difference. The land has to be in the location which he specified. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. If he says it's a Kiddushin on the condition that I show you a base core of land, so then again, in that situation, he has to show land that's actually his. Tana was taught, Lo niskavna zuela liros mishalo. The kavana, the intention over here is that he's going to show his own property, not some other property. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, if he shows her land in a valley that doesn't belong to him, it's not a good Kiddushin. And the Gemara again asks, Pshita, isn't that obvious? It's not his land. The Gemara says, lo, no, tzrich, it's necessary to nakit b'distura. The case over here is, Rashi says distura means an arisus. He's like a sharecropper. So he does have some share of the land. He just doesn't own the land. You might think that that's going to be good enough, but that is not good enough. He actually has to own the land. And the Gemara says, Gabe hektish tanan. When it comes to hektish, we learned in a Mishnah, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Samech Aleph Amud Aleph.